Hello Internet and welcome to episode 47, Agent 47 in fact, of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. You're joining myself, Chris, one of your hosts, alongside my lovely co-host to my left, your right, Mr. Techie Teacher himself in the Purple Cube. Tom, welcome back for another week, sir.
The Purple Cube. Yeah, I'm sort of settling on this purple colour, aren't I, really? I haven't really thought about it.
Is it purple or is it blue and just the light twists it?
It's sort of like a bluey purple, actually. It is sort of sitting in the middle there, but it was just hit a button on a remote and it set that colour, so I'm happy with that.
Well, indigo.
Yeah.
And if we go below the Purple Cube, we've got the man with his guitars, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie, once again.
I'm not shaving my head for this episode.
Was that a requirement?
The Agent 47 reference.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well,
caught us out with that one, I was thinking.
Yeah.
Did we ask Richie to shave his head for this? I didn't recall that being a thing. But yeah, bear in mind, there is no Agent 47 Hitman news or anything this week to do with it. It just happens to land on Agent 47. And if we remember from our 007 episode, gentlemen, no one likes it when you focus the entire episode on a number-based thing. So we'll just move on from that. If you are new to the show, don't forget to give us a like down below and a subscribe to the channel so you are kept in the loop with what is the Sounds of Stadia podcast. It just so happens to be the longest UK Stadia-centric running podcast in the world. We did a little calculation this morning and we're pretty sure we are. We're up to number 47 right now. Coming up on that 1 year anniversary, gentlemen. We'll have to put our heads together and think of some magical celebration we could do.
let's ideas.
Maybe we could shave Richie's head. Who knows? Maybe we could shave your head and your beard, then glue your beard to your head.
Yeah, why not?
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Wow, okay. That's commitment.
But as I mentioned, this is the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Every week we bring you a roundup of the gaming news, Stadia-centric or otherwise, whatever's pertinent to the particular platform, from myself, Chris, Tom and Richie. This week we've got a bumper week once again lined up for you all. We're going to talk about Epic having a bit of a problematic time with some massive multi-corporate companies. We're going to talk about the Embrace Group acquiring certain businesses that relate to Stadia. We've got some new gameplay announcements, some new details for some upcoming titles, some juicy news, and of course some stuff that could only happen on Stadia. So stay tuned and we'll be talking about all that. But first things first, you two lovely gentlemen, what have we been up to, housekeeping wise? Monster Boy, I'm getting there, Tom. I'm getting there.
Yes, you are.
Part 7. I turned into a lion this week. I did indeed. I made loads of Lion King references and puns over on Twitter. It's hard to think of names and titles for these videos sometimes. I don't just want to have it as Monster Boy Part whatever, because it's quite mundane. I want to try and make it a bit more episodic-centric. How far from the end would you say I am now?
You're still a fair distance, I'd say.
Okay. So
yeah, you're probably sitting around about, I want to say about 60% of the game. You've still got a fair bit to go.
Okay. Well, I've got a week off work, so I could get a few episodes in the can for this one. But
good man.
Keep tuned. Every Saturday, I'll come to you with that lovely cartoon action and many deaths. Many deaths.
Many deaths.
Many deaths. And of course...
Is that a death counter?
No, it's beyond that, Richie. There's not enough digits in there. You need like a pi infinite logo to go on for that. This week I also jumped in and checked out Rock of Ages because I know Tom, you were super excited for this one, so I thought I'll jump in, I'll give everyone a first look. So head over to the channel for my first look at Rock of Ages 3 Make and Break. Very Monty Python-esque. Have you had a chance to jump in and mess around with it yet? It obviously launched this midweek. Either of you two played on it?
No, I was thinking about trying to get in this weekend, but just didn't get round to it so far.
All right. I picked it up on the day it came out, so on the 14th, so just a couple of days ago. I was actually in Liverpool over the weekend, just for some time away, really. And fortunately, finally managed to get to try out some 5G, which we'll talk about later on. Picked up Rock of Ages, sat down on my phone, played through that a little bit, and I got through the first little bit. It takes a bit of time to get used to. It is a fun game, but I think we'll talk about our thoughts about that another time on a separate video. But it needs a bit of polishing, I think. It needs a bit of polishing, but it's still fun.
Don't polish
the
it
rock
too
roll
much.
too slow, so you just need to polish it a bit more.
Yeah.
Too much friction.
Polish that lane down like a bowling alley.
Yeah, go check out my first impressions of it. There's definitely a learning curve that I don't think the game lends itself very well to teaching you. Personally, I know level 1 is basically here's how you roll the ball and this is the gameplay, and then very quickly it throws you into this is the castle defense kind of mechanics. And I personally probably would have rather enjoyed a few more levels of the action element of it rather than being flung straight into the mechanics of castle defense, because it was quite a stark contrast between. It was almost felt like I was playing 2 separate games.
Yeah, I think that was sort of my experience as well. It was a game I was very much looking forward to, and I'll probably sit down and play a little bit more. But I think in terms of not just a learning curve, but also a difficulty curve, once you get through the tutorial, you're very much thrown into it, and all of a sudden the difficulty just spikes massively, because not only have you got those tower defense modes that you experienced as well, but there's also like a war mode too, which is where two parties, the two people battling against each other, are both simultaneously building and defending, and you have to wait for your boulder to sort of like go through a time before you can launch it. And while you're waiting for your boulder to launch, you need to set up your course to prevent the enemy from attacking you. And it's very, very fast paced, and you've got to be so on it. But I do think
it's of too many mechanics too quickly kind of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't really explain all of the mechanics. So one big thing that I noticed with Chris's reaction video, and you'll see it in the comments because I just wanted to throw it straight in there for anybody who hasn't played the game yet, is using the towers. People are using the towers and suddenly just like placing one tower here, one tower there, one tower there. But you very quickly learn that the towers do absolutely F all.
They really
absolutely
don't.
Nothing. So what you actually need to do is you need to hold down the A button and drag the tower from one position to another, and it constructs a wall. And it's the wall that slows things down instead.
It's like an Age of Empires 2 where you just put the one thing, but you need to drag it to get a proper wall.
But it doesn't explain it.
Yeah, I naturally just thought it was a turret. The little icon looked like a turret. Yeah. I placed the turret. Some people showed up around it, and then the boulders just smashed the hell through those things. I was like, well, they're crap, they're useless.
But you're thinking, this is a tower defense style game. This is a tower.
A literal tower.
Shoot things at the boulder.
But go check that out. Again, it's a free pro game, so who am I to deny it? I certainly would not have bought the game, so it was great to jump in and check that out as well. Speaking of new things we played, Richie, you joined myself this past Thursday, as promised, for some Strange Brigade action.
Brigade.
We had a ton of fun.
Yeah,
we played for nearly 4 hours. It was just, we got into it, we picked our characters, and we went through, mummified 1930s with some Explorer, twirl your mustache action. Super fun. I'm happy to jump back in again this Thursday, to be fair, in our weekly stream.
It was really good fun.
And I guess there is spare spaces. So, Tom, if your adventure life will allow it, you can join us in Strange Brigade. But even if you are there or not able to join us, we need help. We need a full team. Me and Richie start getting so far, and the difficulty seemed to get a bit more stronger, where we would require more help. So if you are listening to this show right now... We got
screwed over a few times by Minotaurs.
Yeah, on Minotaurs, we discussed... What do you call them, Tom?
I'd probably call it a Minotaur.
I always feel like Minotaur was... Everyone called it that, and then as pop culture and American television's getting more...
Yeah,
Minotaur.
I think that's the problem. I think it's been Americanized.
Until Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they were always going Minotaur. So I wonder if that's closer to the actual Greek pronunciation.
Interesting.
Possibly. But either way, we'll be jumping back in this Thursday for our weekly live stream, and we need your help. So jump into the chat if you've got the game. I mean, if you've got the game, you should do. If you're a Stadia fan and a player and a pro subscriber, you'll have it for free already. So jump in and help us out as our 3rd or 4th member. This Thursday, probably about 8 PM UK time. Check us out for that stream as well. But that's it for housekeeping. We do have one subject I'd like to get onto before we jump into the news, and that is, Tom, you've made the switch, the final nail in the coffin switch, which does actually pertain to our first story of the week as well. You made the switch from iOS, Apple, over to Android, and you picked up a nice new shiny phone. You've had it for about a week or so now, and you've been away, you've been able to test it on 4G, 5G, you got yourself the Kishi peripheral as well.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts. How is life on the move, gaming on the move, using the power of Stadia right now?
It's great, if I'm going to be honest with you. The transition from iOS to Android was actually really slick. Like, I thought it was going to be really difficult to actually sort of make that change, because even though I'm quite a techie person and I sort of embrace a lot of different types of technology, different operating systems and computers and so on, I have not really done that with phones. I've sort of bought into the Apple ecosystem, stuck with that ever since day one, really. So to actually make that jump from Apple from iOS to Android is, to me, it's kind of a big thing because I've never actually done that before. But they really have thought about the user base essentially transitioning across from one platform to another. And I've actually found it actually to be really sort of like self-explanatory. When I think of Android, I think about things that require people to be a little bit more hands-on and have a little bit more knowledge about what they're working with. But the reality is they've definitely tried to, for lack of a better way of putting it, dumbed it down, I suppose, to make it a little bit more accessible to the end user. In terms of gaming and so on, I mean, this has been fantastic. So I picked up the Galaxy S20 Plus, which it is the 5G unit. We haven't got full rollout of 5G in the UK at the moment, but I have had the opportunity to test it out. I tested it over while I was in Liverpool, and I was picking up speeds of about 250 meg per second, which meant that I could get everything that I needed to on Stadia, really. The other thing I would say about this phone in particular as well with the Galaxy range, I'm not sure if they've done this on the Pixel, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. But the S20 Plus comes with a 120 hertz refresh rate as well on the screen, which means that everything just moves really slick in terms of moving through menus and gameplay. It's just almost like, if you think about your frame rates in video games, your 30 FPS, your 60 FPS, and so on there, your screen also has to refresh at that rate as well. So not only how many frames the game generates, but how many frames the screen can actually process at any one time. So having 120 hertz refresh rate is really, really nice because everything just flows really smoothly.
I think the Pixel 4 and the Pixel 4 XL is capped at 90.
Okay, 90 is still good. It's better than the base 60. But no, it's been fantastic. I've tried out the touch controls. I've tried out the Razer Kishi as well. I'm working on a video on the site, so you can expect to see that this week as well, of my thoughts about the Razer Kishi. But initial thought, a bit of a taster for you. It's good. It's really, really good. I had a few initial issues, but they've been sorted now. I'm going to talk about those in the video too, but I would strongly recommend anybody who is thinking about moving from iOS to Android, if you are a Stadia gamer or if you're thinking about getting into xCloud or any of the cloud gaming, I'm gonna be bold and say I'm gonna do it. Do it. I would definitely consider doing it because, there's a lot of things we're going to be talking about in relation to Apple this week, and I think these are things that we all need to consider about going forwards. We talked about some stuff last week as well in relation to Apple not really supporting cloud gaming. I think that's pretty much been solidified by the events that have transpired over the past week as well. But my overall experience has been absolutely top. I definitely recommend it.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. Or the light side.
Woo!
From a certain point of view, Richie.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the Apple's the light side because most of the products are white, where most Android phones come... Yeah.
Are they?
An iPhone's usually white. When you think of an iPhone, you think of a white phone.
No, I don't think.
Really?
Space grey has been their most prominent colour for aside from the rose gold variant. Space grey is the default.
I get what you're talking about, though. Apple have got very much the branding of using the white logo on a solid colour background, or vice versa, a white background with a solid dark colour logo in the middle as well. So
either way, there's still a massive conglomerate business, so by default they're the dark side, right? Along with Google and Amazon and every other massive company.
Everyone's on the dark side.
We're about to talk about. But before we talk about that, Tom, we need you to give us a certain roll call noise.
The super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka the news.
And one hell of a week in news. It has really been, right off the back of that, talking about switching from iOS to Android. The kind of all hell broke loose this week in the world of gaming and large corporations. And we've said on the show many, many times, they're quite often at each other's throats, these businesses, even though they have deals on the side and they work in tandem, patents, copyright lawsuits. It's basically just a big game of tennis for them. They sock $1 million one way, it comes straight back to them, and vice versa. But this week, the gaming industry got very, very involved with it, which, as we all know, as all of you probably listeners out there, is the biggest form of media entertainment in the world. It surpasses music, it surpasses cinema, television. It makes more money. GTA alone probably makes more money than all of those by its own rights. But this week, both Epic Game Store was removed from iOS, Apple's App Store, and the Google Play Store. And yeah, kind of just shit hit the fan with this one, gentlemen, where Epic, Tim Sweeney came out and basically said, we don't approve of their business methods. They're taking a massive cut, 30%, I believe is the number being flung around. And yeah, they pulled it. And this has basically caused this big, massive uproar and saying who's right, who's wrong. But essentially, probably one of the biggest, richest companies in the world in terms of games right now, Epic, are standing their ground and saying, no, your business practices are not right. We're just not going to be on your app store. And Apple kicked them off because of their rules.
Did Epic pull it, or did I think we need to look at the Apple and the Google stuff separate. But did Epic pull it, or did Google pull it?
From what my understanding is, Epic made the change to the in-app, where basically you could buy V-Bucks for Fortnite through the app, basically negating the whole App Store process at a 20% discounted rate. So the incentive was to just buy it internally. App Store,
which is a breach of which is a breach of Google's Play Store's terms of service.
Yeah, and
so
Apple's
Google
App Store service.
And Apple.
Yeah.
But then this goes back to business practices, and if it's fair, when we discussed it, we touched on it last week when the rumourings were coming about of it. Any more thoughts on this one, Tom and Richie, specifically?
We're mainly getting this from a Verge article, and there was two things that they kind of summing up what the lawsuits are about. Monopoly control of the distribution of software to the platform, and monopoly control of the payment systems within the software. This is why I think the first one of them is why we need to look at Google and Apple separately, because I don't think Google have a monopoly control of the distribution of software to Android phones. As Epic themselves say, after 18 months of operating Fortnite and Android outside of the Google Play Store, we've come to a basic realization. Google puts the software downloadable outside the Play Store at a disadvantage. Well, yeah. Obvious statement is obvious statement. But with Apple, they've got a point on that one because, well, you have to go through the iStore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. iOS has always been based on security, and Apple have always prided themselves on keeping everything safe and secure within their ecosystem, and that's why everything works so well cross-pollinated across iPads and all devices. The reason I've always been a big Android fan is that open source material. As someone who's been into gaming and customization, and I remember even just when the original iPhones came out, I was really frustrated at the lack of ability to just move icons around on my home screen, whereas you could do it on every Android device. So even having your own background or ringtone that didn't have to be purchased through the iOS store was my big switch over many moons ago. But you're totally right there, Rich, in saying if you wanted to download the Epic app on Android, you would simply go to the website, download the file and install it on your phone. You wouldn't have to even go through the Play Store. iOS doesn't have such a luxury unless you jailbreak the phone, which is why this is now basically taking millions of people off the table, and they are not going to be able to access Epic or Fortnite through an iOS device, which is a lot of people. As we discussed last week, it's a big market share to leave on the floor when it comes to the millions and millions of dollars that are out there to be made.
My overarching thought on reading this article is this is a big business not getting as much money as they wanted when they were out looking at. I'll focus in on the Google side of it, because the Apple side of it is, I think they've got more of a justifiable point.
I'll comment on that in a moment.
Well, the Google side is they were operating outside the Google store, weren't happy with the money, probably the install rate, so they put themselves on the Google store, changed the software to breach Google's terms of service, and now kicking up a fuss because they probably just weren't earning enough money off it. This is big business, really being big business, to be honest. That's my overall thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to lay down the situation. The reason that Tim Sweeney and Epic are not happy is because Google and Apple, through purchases made through the Google Play Store or the App Store, take a 30% cut of all profits that are made through an app. That's why the purchases have to be routed through that. That's not unheard of. Steam does exactly the same thing. That's Epic, not unheard of.
Epic do the same thing.
Yeah, it's not unheard of. This is literally, as you said, Richie, big business being big business. They want to increase their profits and just drop their costs, essentially, which, that's what businesses exist for, right? But what Epic have done, quite frankly, in my personal opinion, this is my opinion alone, I don't speak for other people or the two of you here, but they have they have absolutely just breached the guidelines that are set. They have agreed to those terms and conditions. They have followed them for, what was it, 18 months or so?
It was 18 months when they went through the Play Store. So I don't know how long they were on the Play Store for.
It's about a year or so, if give or take, from what I've heard.
Okay. But now they've basically just underhanded the terms and conditions, essentially, like the licensing agreement that they have in place. They've just underhanded cut it out there. And that's bad practice, in my personal opinion. You know, they've agreed to set terms. They knew what they were getting into, and they've gone behind the scenes to do it. Now, I understand their reasoning for it in the way they've marketed it. In fact, I actually think it's kind of sly the way they did it. So in Fortnite, they actually put up one of those big cinema screens and actually broadcast a video message. And it's like free Fortnite or something like that. But they actually created a George Orwell 1984, except they renamed it 1980 Fortnite. Sort of like branded message to basically say that these big businesses shouldn't be allowed to take these sorts of cuts. Well, I'm sorry, but you agreed to them in the first place.
But I think Epic are referring to themselves as if they're not a big business.
Yeah.
They're massive.
They are arguably one of, like, outside of Tencent in China, one of probably the biggest companies in, like, globally. Look at the success of Fortnite alone, globally.
Fortnite aside, Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
That's Epic. It's like, they are huge. Again, this is why I say big. For me, they're just using like they've created the legal position to try and use the court to leverage Google's to change their policies.
And I don't think in any way whatsoever that this is going to succeed. I don't see how, under any circumstances, that this can be changed. It might spark change in terms of like the thoughts about like the, capping perhaps the amount that platform owners can actually charge in terms of business rates and so on. But I don't really see how this is going to really impact them business to business.
Yeah. On the Google side, I agree, because Google can always just point out and go, you yourself have stated that you had your software on Android phones for 18 months without using the Google Play Store. You're free to do that again.
Yeah.
The Apple argument is different because that option is not available. So then if Apple do have an effective monopoly, which should be looked at as a very different scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of opens it up to the wider question where you're completely right, Tom, in what you addressed there, saying like you agree to these business practices, and part of me thinks, well, these two storefronts, both Apple and Google, they're ran by Apple and Google, so it doesn't give another business any given right to be on sale on that platform. It's the same with like retail. Just because you own a product doesn't give you the right to put it on everybody's shelves and shops. It's like it's not your storefront. It goes back to, I think Google were fined millions by the European Union last year for breach of consumer laws of when you Googled, like, say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of anything, a nice colourful hat, it would bring you up their search engine results before the competition, and they got fined millions upon millions for that. My personal take on that, it's their bloody storefront. They can promote their own stuff within it if they want to. It's their storefront. Alas, apparently it's not consumer friendly, which obviously it's not. However, back to what we're talking about here, is you're right, business practices aside, they've breached the rules they agreed to. So you kind of have to be on Apple and Google's side here. But when it comes to for that point, when it comes down to smaller developers, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and online basically saying that it needed a company the size of Epic to do this to actually get any traction or see any potential movement, because all of the small, like, 1-person, 2-person indie development teams who make apps for games, then being stripped of 30% of their income is a big chunk for like 1 or 2 individuals on the smaller side. Yes, to Epic it may be like chump change. I mean, we say chump change, but we're talking millions upon millions. But it is a big cut of money to take for essentially doing nothing other than having it digitally distributed.
I think too often are we quick to just assume that there's a single motivation. Epic probably have multiple motivations within that company to have made this move. They probably are thinking about some of the smaller developers to a degree. But I think you just need to move away from, be careful not going Epic good, Google bad, or Apple bad, etc.
Good.
What we need as well is realise this is actually very complicated stuff we're talking about, because we're talking about as this digital retailer effectively that operates globally, but even different states in the US have different laws in terms of things like monopolization and like what can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be, especially the Apple side. The Apple side's a bit more, I think, clear cut. Apple do seemingly have an effective monopoly because if you have an Apple phone, you have to use their store to get anything. That's different to the Google side. So I would take these cases very differently.
It's also quite interesting if you think about the actual consumer base for Epic products in general, and let's be honest, most of that is Fortnite. As a teacher, I see lots of students owning phones, and a lot of those students, particularly in the lower year groups at secondary school, do so talking like the ages of like 11 through to 16. They would probably be invested in one way or another in Fortnite. It's the big thing with kids, right? Like that and Minecraft. And Roblox to a certain extent. But most of those students, I would say, also own iPhones. They don't own Android phones. They don't own OnePlus. They don't own Samsung. They don't own Google phones, and many other different brands that are out there on the market. So effectively what's happened here is now all of those young gamers out there who were playing Fortnite and may not so much have been spending money on V-Bucks, which this sort of comes down to at the end of the day. But the parents probably do at some point, one way or another. They can no longer play Fortnite on their phone. It's gone. from iOS. It's just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. If you had the app, it no longer works on iOS. So the question to me, or the question that I'm thinking at this point then is, what happens to that user base? Because most of them probably play on mobile. They probably don't play on PC. There will probably be some who do play on console as well. In fact, I imagine a large chunk of them do. But then that also makes me move over to the argument then of, what about the PlayStation Store and the Xbox Store? Do they have some sort of agreement in place that works in a roundabout way? Why aren't they being targeted as well, if that is the case by Epic?
That's a good point.
Because at that point then that gets me thinking, is Epic targeting Google and Apple because of is it because of higher percentages, or is it because they want to try to negate the dominance of Apple and Google in the mobile marketplace and start to get people moving to, as you said before, Richie, like direct downloads for games instead, rather than through mediated platforms? I think there's a lot more behind the scenes to this argument, in particular, that isn't being reported as well.
There's a lot of complicated motivations into what's led them to make these decisions.
Yeah, but I think the console thing is an interesting thing to consider, because to me, at the end of the day, what Epic's end goal is they want to get everybody into the Epic store and getting everything through Epic's own storefront, because that way they get 100% of the profits. So if anything were to happen with this Google and Apple lawsuit, does the attention then turn to Microsoft and Sony? Which I don't think that's a smart move at all. But it sort of raises more questions if you get where I'm going with it.
I think they're probably more willing to take the risk on mobile, because I kind of think the user base on mobile is probably dwarfed by the console user base. And there's probably a lot of crossover anyway.
Okay.
I think you're probably most likely to play Fortnite on your phone if you're already playing it on PlayStation or Xbox.
I'd be interested to see what I
might be wrong, but
yeah. I'd be interested to see what the community think about that, though. So let us know what your thoughts are in the comments as well, please.
Yeah.
I kind of think what's probably going to happen is, I think with the Google stuff, it might just be a financial settlement outside of court. I really think that's just the way it's going to go. Or they agree a bespoke deal where we'll only take 20% of a cut rather than 30%, that sort of idea. Apple could be a very different story, because it might force legislators, and I think it's California they're looking at this, to really look into Apple's business practices on the iPhone and the store specifically.
Yeah, I mean,
that could be a bigger story there. Yeah. This could be the roots of something bigger.
The whole story about business practices has been kind of a thing bubbling under the surface for quite some time, and whether it's in relation to gaming or just paying taxes correctly and other practices, like why is one company so rich in comparison to others, and having that monopoly in that storefront definitely helps that. Obviously, capitalism at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. But on the flip side of all these things, to bring it back around full circle, is all these practices and all these things in regard to blocking. I think it's highlighted, if not more, this week, because it came right off the back of them not allowing Microsoft to have xCloud, and by situational chance, Stadia also being on their App Store. So now the spotlight is definitely switched to kind of controlling these storefronts, and it just seems like hit after hit. And like the light is now being shone upon, like, well, why do they gatekeep it? Why do they control it? Why are they the people who prevent millions upon millions of people accessing this stuff? Because the turnaround of that would be, Tom, you said about the Epic Store kind of came out of nowhere the last few years because they have the millions of money. If you could play Stadia or Xbox, you could then play Fortnite through the mobile thing. But them apps are also blocked, so...
Are you saying that the Eye of Sauron is firmly fixed upon Apple right now?
I mean, it seems to be from everything I can see, but it just makes you think, if the Epic app was blocked, but xCloud and Stadia were okay, then you could play Fortnite through there. And kind of, but again, that's another thing. So now you've got a question, is Apple blocking them all for the same reasons, or is it different rules for one and different rules for the other? And Google by association, but they'd be stupid to block Stadia.
Yeah.
So
it raises a lot of questions, but sort of bringing this back on topic with it being a Stadia-centric podcast. I sort of feel like Epic targeting Google here. I know, again, Google has a lot of different divisions within it, but this sort of also highlights to me that Epic are not prepared to work with Google at the moment in terms of, releasing their products, releasing their games onto Google platforms, or particularly they're looking at sort of trying to wrestle control back before they consider anything there. Well, we talked last week about how they've said that Fortnite isn't going to be coming to Stadia anytime soon because of the number base. This sort of solidifies that sort of argument that Fortnite is not coming anytime soon to Stadia at the moment.
I think, reading behind the scenes, I think the main thing why Epic are less inclined to play ball with Google is they're trying to position the Epic Store to be a direct competitor to Steam.
Yeah.
Google's probably stepping in the way a bit on that. Especially if they brought Fortnite to Stadia, why would anyone go to the Epic Store? That would be part of their thought process.
Yeah. It's all change, but it is all swings and roundabouts, and this is what happens. Money gets exchanged, businesses change, businesses evolve, and we'll definitely keep an eye on this one.
I think it is one of them. This is either this is just routine business doing businessy things, and it's been amplified by last week's stories about Apple and cloud streaming, or this is the beginnings of a bigger story potentially.
Well, I certainly think so, but we shall see. So, big story aside, moving on to another little story, which I think slipped under the net for a lot of people this week. The Embracer Group is again more millions and millions of pounds and dollars being shared around. This week they acquired. They're also part of they own the THQ Nordic group, which we know has been just a big blob of games, just absorbing title after title.
It's the black hole of the gaming universe.
Really is.
Since THQ Nordic rose as a phoenix company, they just started buying everything that was up for sale.
Anyone in its gravitational pull is just, oh shit, we're owned by them now. We're now a subsidiary of THQ Nordic.
Talk about conglomerate groups.
Well, exactly.
I'd love to see their financial statements, because they must be very interesting.
Ups and downs. And we know they've put out, so SpongeBob Rehydrated one was one of theirs. If I'm not mistaken, Destroy All Humans was part of their grand. See, now every double A title I kind of just envisage being part of THQ Nordic at this point. You double check on that for me. I can see you typing, Tom.
Yeah,
run that.
THQ Nordic. Yeah.
So as you can see, basically anything that's not AAA or indie is owned by THQ Nordic across the middle of the board.
Will be.
Yeah, to be fair, we're even pushing it, just mentioning them on the podcast. We could be absorbed by THQ Nordic just for talking about them. I can feel that pull sucking us away towards it. But to the actual story itself is the Embracer Group, who owns THQ Nordic. They picked up 4A Games, Deca Games, or DECA Games, New World Interactive, Palindrome Interactive, Pow Wow Entertainment, Rare Earth Games, not to be mistaken for Rare Entertainment, Solar Media, and Vermilla Studios in one fell swoop, gentlemen. They've got 8 new acquisitions once again, but the biggest thing for me is 4A are obviously the developers behind the Metro franchise. which are all available on Stadia now. So in terms of Stadia news, this could be big going forward in terms of ongoing relationships with partners. But more importantly, the games they're talking about working on next is another AAA production valued game from Saber Interactive, who's the publishing partner, for future Stadia games. This is, is it good news? Is it bad news? Is it kind of just, it doesn't really impact Stadia at this point? You'd like to think it doesn't really change anything that's set in place, but yeah, I kind of feel like this one went under the radar a little bit.
The main thing for me, why I think it probably has went under the radar a bit, is these are all very small studios. Apart from 4A, I don't think I've really heard of any of the games that these guys have produced. Solar Media, I don't think it's even a game studio.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, you're right, Richie. It's a sales agent of international film and TV right distribution for children and family films around the globe. It's also, it's through the Koch Film label, which is another one they own. But this is where business practices kind of become a bit weird, where everything's kind of hidden between 20 different cups and the balls just moved throughout them, and then all of a sudden they'll reveal one like, oh look, it's a game. Put it back in, move them around.
I don't mean to say that these are bad games that they've produced or anything like that. It's just I haven't heard of them. So I'm not. That's why I'm not sure how impactful this news actually would be to Stadia. I mean, it's potentially more games. That's a good thing.
I'm familiar with New World Interactive. I'm trying to have a quick look through as to why I know New World Interactive.
Insurgency?
Dave Infamy.
Not Insurgency. No.
Not Insurgency.
Saber? Oh, that's Saber Interactive. That's the parent company.
Yeah, perhaps.
I'm scrolling down for some reason. I was just scrolling down the website and that's...
So if we look at 4 games in particular, like I said, they do the Metro franchise and the long-term developer with the publisher Deep Silver. So they've got 150 staff working on it. So they are kind of like a AAA. In personal opinion, AA to AAA. They're in that like middle ground between it. But we know they've just had Metro Exodus came out last year. So now the focus is surely going to be on that next title. Personally, I would like to see them move away from the Metro franchise and do something a little bit different. And it does look in their brief kind of press release they put out there is they're going to be working on a new AAA property from that team, which is going to leverage the experience from working on the Metro franchise. So most likely a first-person shooter. I'd hope they take a totally different detour and make something new and exciting, because I do enjoy seeing a fresh new IP. But hopefully they won't just get absorbed.
It's entirely possible the reason they've bought these studios is so they can work in collaboration with each other. So you could have 4A games effectively, because they've got these other smaller studios, it could almost effectively increase the amount of people they have by leasing out internally parts of the game development to other studios.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that in terms of business deals like this, that might be more what we're looking at here. We're looking essentially at an umbrella corporation. Yeah. Not the same umbrella corporation, of course.
Yeah, not that one. Please,
not that one.
If you're working on that one, stop.
We're already dealing with one virus as is.
We are indeed.
Let's not bring the T-virus into this.
In terms of THQ Nordic, I really just want them to get that Time Splitters game out. I've been going on about it for so long. There's a Time Splitters Rewind, which is a fan-made one using Unreal Engine. That's been in the works for what feels like an eternity now, and they give like an annual update because it's such a small group of people working on it part-time. But they own the IP, so just, come on guys. Come on THQ. Embrace the group. Do something with your 50,000 studios.
I'm wondering whether Embracer are sort of like buying up all these studios so they can actually create their sort of like Embracer cinematic universe type Super Smash Brothers type thing. They've got Darksiders, if you talk about THQ Nordic, Darksiders, SpongeBob, Destroy All Humans.
What a
roster. It could be some sort. Yeah. It wouldn't stand up though. Let's be honest.
I mean, what would you even call it?
Who knows?
I don't.
But
I really don't.
No idea.
It's entirely possible that there's going to be a lot of mergers going on between these these companies as well. It's really hard to say. Like announcing you've just bought 8 studios in one go is kind of odd.
It's a bit of a like, here's my big dick energy kind of flexing on other studios, isn't it? Really, like, look what we've done. Yeah. Your movie, eh?
Yeah.
We don't have a big dick, but we have 8 small ones. Octo dick.
That's a game on play. Oh no, that's Octodad.
No,
It's Octodad.
It's a very different game.
Let's be honest. I'm sure
Yeah, it was
Octodad's
one.
got that big dick energy as well.
Octodad's a great game. Great game.
Is that published by THQ? Yes.
It wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me. But speaking of games coming potentially to Stadia in the future or otherwise, we've got 2 new games got rated by it was the German's rating board, the USK, so not ESRB. One of these other rating boards which grades games, which is why Stadia app and xCloud should be allowed on Apple because they're rated, they're governed by this overarching thing. From Devolver Digital, which we know we've got a few games now trickling through to Stadia, we've got Hotline Miami and the sequel, Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number, rated for Stadia. They were rated on the 28th of July, respectively, so we've got those. Most likely 100% incoming. We've seen these ratings be very, very critical and factual before. Either of you two had a chance to check out the Hotline Miami games previously, and what are your thoughts? I'll go to you, Tom, first, because you're nodding away.
Yeah, played the first one. I think I picked it up on Switch, of all things. It was Switch. Was it actually on PS Vita? Could have been on
I would have
Vita,
thought
actually.
Vita. I had it on Vita.
Yeah, I remember having it on a handheld device, on something I could play handheld.
Well,
been quite a while since I played it, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I like that sort of. It's a throwback to like the original GTA's, isn't it? That top-down sort of 2D top-down shooting, moving through rooms and so on. I like it. It's a bit of fun.
Well, it reminds me of my uncle had a Sega Dreamcast of all consoles, and when we used to go on his, he only had 3 games. One was like Virtual Racer or something. He had Casper the Friendly Ghost, and he had a game called Loaded. Or Reloaded or something it may have been, where it was very much a top-down. You got keys to go into certain rooms, and you had a squad of, I think there was about 2, 3, 4 maybe co-op, and you basically just like shot, like I said, Grand Theft Auto bird's eye view style, and so the characters were just basically shoulders and a circle for a head, and then a stick for a gun. But you went around, collected ammo, collected weapons, grenades and stuff, and basically just mowed through tons of enemies on it. And this is essentially what Hotline Miami is. It's set in 1989 Miami. It's got really cool kind of synth pop 80s beaty music. It's really vibrant. It ticks over nicely. I love the original. I never had a chance to play number 2. For those of you who've just played through The Last of Us Part 2, you'll notice Hotline Miami actually makes an appearance on the PlayStation Vita within the world of The Last of Us. So it's not dead, Richie. It's still going in the post-apocalyptic world of whatever 2035, whatever it may be. I'm excited for it. It's been a while. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a pro game, in all honesty, just because of the age of the game, the size and scope of the game. It don't even, I think, is a brand new indie title. It was only ever £15 to £20 range. So if it's that niche pro,
it's a perfect pro game, in my opinion. It's very, very well received. It's a smaller title. It's good. It's a good game. And it just shows it as well. This is something I know a lot of people are not fond of, but shows Stadia's commitment to getting these well-beloved indie titles on the platform to fill out the back catalogue.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we need to look at that, really, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to consider the fact that this seems to be the move that they're taking now in terms of indie games. They're I won't say they're straying away from the lesser known ones, because getting lesser known on the platform is still good for exposure, but they're definitely trying to hit the indie crowd in terms of getting the big indie title names now.
Yeah. I mean, Hotline Miami, the original one, it got plenty of, I think it was 2012 Game of the Year nominations, so it was one of the ones up there with the ones at the time. Personally, I just think it's what they need to do.
I think IGN rated it as a 10.
Wonderful. So
that's the level of game we're talking about.
Yeah. Swish.
Machinima was 95 out of 100.
You're watching the trailer, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
So all we need right now is Fall Guys. Make it happen.
Oh, well, we'll be talking about that in our post-show, no doubt. Games that we would like to see on Stadia, because there's been a lot of rumours this week around some games that may not be coming to Stadia from leaks and reports and stuff like that. But we'll talk about that more when we've got a more concrete. When we've got an ESRB German ratings board locked in, that's when we'll really go in depth and talk about it.
I'm surprised. I thought Peggy was a pan-European rating board. I thought that was kind of the point, but I didn't realise there would be a separate one for Germany.
Yeah,
but apparently there is.
I mean, we've got the BBFC in the UK as well, so I mean, I know film classification. But
I suppose
they do
Peggy
raise
is
other
probably
things.
dealing with European law where the individual countries are their laws beyond that.
Do you think the same guy does the voiceover for all of them? So, like the Peggy 18, Peggy 12. Do you think he does like the German board and every other one as well?
USK.
Yeah.
He probably did. It's just like one recording session where he just did all the ratings boards and all the ratings in one go.
Yeah,
And now I want Peggy 16,
Just-
Peggy 18.
just gets in there with the German board as well. It's 9 rating. I don't know what that is. But in terms of that, Islands Fanzig, yeah. Peggy.
That's 11.
I don't know. I'm just saying German numbers now.
Yeah.
This is a predominantly English podcast, except for
Actually,
when
that's 21. Sorry.
we get to Islands
Fanzig
Fanzig.
is
Is
20.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, that's for another discussion altogether. How much German do you not know? In terms of the games, though, we do know FIFA is coming. FIFA 21. We hope, actually. I don't think that's officially been confirmed. At the Connect, it was just
weird if
FIFA.
it wasn't.
It would be very weird if they came up with 20. Again, with it being annualised, it seems daft for them to work on an older game when they could just go from this year
It is
forward.
possible they do the Nintendo move where they've ported like an older version of the game, but they changed the squads to the newer version. So I think it might have been like 17 or something, where it was like the version on Switch or whatever it was, the Wii U at the time, I think was like the previous years when they'd upgraded the engine.
They did that on Vita and such, and that I think predominantly was just down to the capabilities of the device. You couldn't iterate and get better and better year on year, so it was much cheaper and more efficient, and it was going to make the game
optimization as well for that.
Whereas I think Stadia, it has the foresight benefit of always being like the best version you'd like to think. My guess is it's going to be FIFA 21 we'll get. And they've dropped some stuff this past week, so as we start to ramp up towards the football season starting again, we've seen some information drop around the career mode. And also the crossplay functionality, or lack thereof, I should say. So we can confirm FIFA 21 is not getting crossplay, disappointingly enough, with other platforms, which...
That's including cross-generation play as well.
Yeah, it depends on your take. Personally, the way I play FIFA, I do love to jump into a bit of career mode, and I enjoy playing it with friends. I'm not one for the FUT Seasons campaign mode, that's all online. And I'm not really one for playing with strangers online. I'd rather play with friends, competitively or otherwise, or as a team. So in terms of the crossplay, it doesn't really have an impact on me because I plan on getting it on Stadia, and I plan on playing with the likes of Richie and anyone out there. I know me and Chase have a game lined up, Orlando versus New York City FC.
Nice.
I'm completely with you there, Chris. I'm exactly the same. It's all about the career mode or couch co-op for me, for FIFA. But I do think this is a bit of a blow for Stadia, who has by far the smallest user base, it not being cross-play. If you are big into the online features... You're probably not going to get. You're not going to get out on Stadia.
Yeah, it's definitely going to hurt.
Although one of the big things I would like to say with them mentioning around career mode and stuff, we alluded to it last week, Richie. You talking about Football Manager. I would love the ability to jump in and do my training simulations, simulate some matches, pick my squads, do some transfers. All with just touchscreen controls on the go.
Yeah.
That will be phenomenal for me. Then I'll play my matches on the big screen at home, but then if I'm out and about on the move, the ability to customise and tweak stuff and put maybe requests in for transfers and purchases, that'll be fantastic. So I'm looking forward to those two things kind of coming to a tandem with each other.
Yeah, with the additional stuff they're putting into career mode this year, they seem to be focusing heavily on career mode, which is it's probably about 7 years overdue that they've done this. I put a bit of effort into career mode, and I'm quite excited for it, actually. So it's a lot of the stuff I've been wanting for. Part of it is almost like a half step towards a Football Manager, where you get a lot more stuff. Where instead of before, if you didn't, you could just sim games, and it's just like, oh, he's a screen. Oh, you lost 2-1. Now you actually can influence the game tactically, effectively play as the manager. Oh, and then you can also jump in and out of the game, which looks pretty cool, to be honest. I'm all for these changes to career mode. So
yeah, it's interesting stuff to
a definite buy for me.
Yeah, same. I missed last year's FIFA, so I'm hoping they've iterated with an extra year, and I know the career mode got a bit of a backlash on last year's iteration because it was practically broken on launch.
There was less in it than the previous years.
Yeah, so I think this has forced them to really double down and just make it an exciting aspect of the FIFA.
Well, there you go, EA execs. We know you're listening out there. You've at least got 2 people purchasing it on Stadia, so let's make sure it happens. Yeah,
let's make sure. Are you not jumping in, Tom? You're not a...
I'm not. I've never been that big on football. I haven't played a FIFA game since probably, I want to say like 16. Probably it's been a number of years now.
Not much has changed.
But, no, I wouldn't expect it to. But football, or soccer for our American viewers, has never really been like my sort of sport of choice personally. I've always been a bit more out there with things like the ice hockey and so on as well, which. From EA's perspective, I don't believe they're actually releasing. We haven't had any more information about NHL 21. In fact, I actually think that's been delayed simply because of everything that's gone on. They've sort of like taken the regs out of that basket and put it elsewhere. So
yeah, I'd be intrigued to see if we get MLB this show, because they've recently just stopped being PlayStation exclusive, and they've announced going forward even though it's made by a PlayStation-owned studio, it's going to be open on other platforms as well, such as Xbox and PC. So it'd be interesting if Stadia falls into that caveat, or if it is maybe just too much work for a PlayStation-owned studio at the end of the day. But we are starting to see that cross-pollination coming alive, and I think, as gaming does move more towards the cloud, I can see, we saw it with Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC, Death Stranding. I think there is a lot of room for this cross-pollination if, again, businesses go where the money is. So if you've got a platform of X amount of people, why wouldn't you put your game there? So interesting stuff. Speaking of more new games as well, we did allude to it slightly last week, but we've had a little bit more trickle out regarding DC and what the world of Batman and his colourful cast of enemies are up to. We got confirmation this week that at the DC fandom event taking place later this month on the 22nd of August, we're going to pretty much hear about the game announcements and finally find out what WB have been up to behind the scenes and Rocksteady have been up to. So if I'm right, it's called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is the title for the Rocksteady game, and WB Montreal's that long teased Court of Owls game is going to be Gotham Knights. So not Court of Owls, Gotham Knights. Now, thoughts?
I wonder if Gotham Knights is going to be a sequel to the Arkham series, but not playing as Batman. So set in the same world.
So
wasn't the last one Arkham Knight?
Yes, that was.
And the fact that it's plural suggests probably multiple characters.
Yeah.
Well, the Batman games, by the end of it, you could play as Catwoman, you could play as Robin, and the DLC subsequently let you play as a few other characters, but never in like the main campaign. It was always Batman predominantly.
I wonder if that's going to be a bit more of a heavier focus on the cast of characters, where rather than having Batman and side characters.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're actually going for more of like, if you think about like the Marvel Avengers style approach to it, and basically saying like, you have your missions, but you have your choice of characters to approach the missions from different angles, or perhaps even that you can just drop in and out of almost like a fully fluid world, open world, where all the different characters, if you think a la GTA 5, you've got your characters out there in the world doing their own things, but you can jump into them for missions and so on. I don't know.
I think you're right there, Tom. I think what one of the heavily rumoured things has been is that one of them is going to be a squad-based game, similar to Destiny, a la the new upcoming Avengers game, which we'll talk about briefly. And again, the cast of villains, like the hall of villains that essentially Batman has, I think is phenomenal. part of the reason I really enjoyed the Arkham games is I think all of the villains in Batman have such a deep lore behind them and interesting quirks. Like when you vary from Scarecrow to Penguin to Killer Croc and stuff, there's such a variation in villains, and they're also likeable in their own way, which is I think why things like Suicide Squad is even a thing, because the cast of characters is so different and varied.
They've got a certain charisma behind them. They're
completely.
They're not just very generic characters. There's actual character in there.
I would take, when you look at some of the Marvel stuff that puts out, some of the B-list villains they try and drag out, and even just like down to watching like the movies, Iron Man 3 and the Mandarin, like the Mandarin, I'd never even heard of him before the movie, and then in the movie they decide to do a lovely twist as well. But if you name me Batman villains like the Joker and stuff, like there's so many more you can throw out there. Deadshot and the likes of that. It's wonderful.
I mean, it's a completely different podcast, but I think the biggest failures of the DCEU was they just didn't develop the characters. They boiled them down to one or two traits and just chucked them into almost like a late game story where you expected to know Batman's backstory massively before Justice League without ever really being on that journey with him.
It was certainly rushed, but unlike things that are rushed, this stuff's been cooking at Rocksteady and cooking at WB Montreal for what feels like half a decade, if not probably at this point. I feel like I played Arkham Knight a lifetime ago now, and Arkham Origins even longer. I guess like 2015, 16-ish.
Let's have a look.
You typed it away.
2015.
2015. Wow. So 5 years, which is crazy.
Half a decade ago.
And again, when we get the announcement at DC Fandom, that doesn't tell us it's coming out then. We might still have to wait till into 2021. So that's a long time in development. So all that tells me is that we've got some big games on the horizon, which I'm looking forward to. And we know WB have that relationship with Stadia. We've not seen anything of it yet, but we know it's in the pipeline. So fingers crossed we're going to get this announced, and we're going to get another day-and-date AAA big hitting title for Stadia, hopefully coming soon. Moving on then, we'll move into some different aspects of news this week. Before we jump onto that, I do want to talk about the Only on Stadia platform. So we opened up a segment, I think it was last week, called Only on Stadia. And this is shit that could only happen on Stadia that we we want to have a little laugh about, a little jovial chuckle, if you will. So this week, YouTube Gaming, I think I saw Eddie comment on it and tweet it back out. They came out on the YouTube Gaming channel asking which one of these platforms you choose for crossplay, and it was a 4-segmented panel collage of photos. Top left, DualShock 4. Top right, Xbox controller. Bottom left, 2 Nintendo Joy-Cons, and bottom right, keyboard and mouse. Now, gentlemen, which particular platform of gaming is missing from that list that they actually own?
This one.
Oh dear.
Audio listeners, I'm holding up my my Stadia controller.
You can't really write this shit, can you? But only Google would forget their own platform when promoting gaming and crossplay.
It just shows the disconnect within Google as a corporation. Like, I know YouTube Gaming is a separate company to Stadia, but you at least think this just shows that they're probably not even considering Stadia. Like, it should be the top left.
Well, I mean, sorry, Tom, you're probably going to say.
I was going to say, interestingly, we did get a response from YouTube Gaming themselves as well, saying that they are a platform that doesn't bias in any way whatsoever. But I still don't think it excuses them from not including their own.
If you're not biased, that should have everything there. I want N64 controllers.
I want to see a bloody joystick and a steering wheel as well.
Yeah,
on there,
if you're not biased, just show generic Mad Catz controllers.
Oh, that's a throwback. But it's just one of those. Yeah, it's just one of those only on Stadia laughable moments that they would forget their own division. And again, a second add-on to that is when you go on the YouTube website, the icon for YouTube Gaming is a Stadia controller. So it's integrated to some degree, but it just baffles me that somebody over who runs the YouTube Gaming account doesn't think to maybe put your own product at first and foremost, and then because this is the type of subliminal marketing. You need your product in the public mind's eye alongside these other big hitters to make it become a viable product. If you're not talking about it on your own storefront, like Apple and Google we were talking about earlier in the show, it's just a free opportunity to make you look like you can stand up against the big boys, and not having your presence there just makes memes and GIFs and people sharing it and people commenting on the Twitter thread going, Google, you forgot about your own platform there. You're being detrimental to your own product, whether intentional or not.
If they had the Stadia controller on there anyway, instead of say the mouse and keyboard, there's going to be people calling them out for bias, but that's inevitable, and I think it's still better than not having it there. And then they're always discussing on the podcast what the fuck.
But again, a laughable point, and only on Stadia. Only on Stadia for now. A few final points of note for this week's news before we wrap up. We got some APK Breakdown features as well that are coming to the app. So it looks like we're going to be getting pre-ordering. We know we can do it on Destiny, or we could do it for Destiny. It was the idea the next couple of years worth of content popped available on there. We've also seen not only pre-ordering is due to go live, it looks like text messaging within the app So we
It's
know
finally coming.
finally, so you can contact your Stadia people. I don't think it's that big of a deal really.
There's a lot of people asking for it, so I'd say so.
I would always just message you through WhatsApp or otherwise.
I'm always seeing people in the Facebook groups asking about what's the best way to communicate with people on Stadia. So I'd say it is a big deal.
If you're not, I suppose if you're not fortunate enough to know the people you're playing with, it must be quite difficult to arrange something. Like, I actually take it for granted that when I want to play, I just message you guys in our joint group and just say, let's jump on Discord for the voice chat, because the Stadia chat's below par, to say the least.
We have a Discord. We can just
we can use that. Other features that are mentioned in that is Stadia 2.29 is also going to come with a Stadia update for status. So obviously you've got online, busy. At the moment, it looks like they're going to add extra ones in that comes under the category of looking for a party, streaming, which would come in handy for us because there's several times we've been streaming and notifications start popping up mid-stream, which it can be a distraction. But it would be great if it would just pop up saying, Sounds of Stadia is streaming Spitlings or something like that, and then it would prevent notifications popping or coming through. Looking for a party is great, as you mentioned there, Richie, reaching out to people who you maybe don't know on a personal level and want to play a game, just looking for a party. I'm free, I'm playing whatever.
Facebook's a terrible platform for that. I'll get a notification from the UK Stadia group, click on it, and it was about a conversation happening 12 hours ago.
Yeah. Or you click the link and it says something went wrong and you can't actually play with it.
Well, that's usually when someone's got rid of the post, that one.
Yeah, true. And then the final point of call that I wanted to touch on this week, it's not necessarily Stadia specific, but it does really ring true for my own personal gaming life, is Remedy Control 505. I tweeted about it earlier. Have you froze, Tom?
Tom's froze. We'll keep going.
He hasn't froze with that face, has he?
I think he's just keep going.
No, he's staying still. Look at his eyes. No, I think he might.
No, he's definitely froze.
Wow, that is a position to freeze in, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? For audio viewers, listeners, I can't really describe this face to you, really. I don't even know. You'll have to check out the YouTube video to find out what the hell is going on over there. Point upwards, Richie. Let's just point at him. Yeah, that guy over there is froze. So, just after that little technical mishap, Tom is back with us, or he's disappeared. There he is. He was hiding under the table all along.
Hiding all along.
He went to fix the internet, which, of course, everyone keeps
below the whole internet.
Below
you keep the internet underneath your desk.
Yeah,
he kicked it. That's the problem.
Yeah, he kicked it.
It's in Richie's cube.
That's it. It's hidden down there. I
saw your feet come through the ceiling.
Pass the internet back up. But yes, just to talk about that, we were discussing Control. And the lack thereof of future planning for next gen. So this is Stadia specific because I think it could come to Stadia with it being one of those last Game of the Year nominations.
Ooh, okay.
If you think about it, we've got Sekiro, we've got Hotline Miami, which is a 2012 nomination. What else have we got that's coming? That's Game of the Year. Oh, Jedi Fallen Order as well. So there's quite a couple of games, and I think Control fits into that bracket of an older title, but one that probably could be ported quite well to Stadia, and I think Remedy in particular are quite open with these kind of things. So in regards to Controller, the really thing that knocked me off this week was the deluxe edition. You can buy in all its entirety, like I was just saying to Richie there, you can buy Control, all of bells and whistles, including all the DLC season pass content, as a new bundled up deluxe edition, which comes with, if you buy the deluxe edition, a free port over to next gen. So if you have a PS5, an Xbox Series X, or potentially Stadia in the future, you get that next iteration included. The thing that really gets under my skin is I was an early adopter of Control. I pre-ordered it, I had it day one, I paid full price for it. I also, because I enjoyed the game so much, it was one of my Game of the Year discussional ones last year, I also bought the season pass for full price, and I've got one, and the second one's just about to drop with Alan Wake this month. Looking forward to jumping back in. However, I, as an early adopter who've paid full price, I do not get a free upgrade to next gen. I have to buy the deluxe edition for full price once again to get that benefit. So someone who's paid more, who's been a bigger supporter, a bigger fan of the game, I've got the Platinum Trophy in it as well on PlayStation. The reward I get for that is I have to buy it all again for 40 quid just to get the next gen version.
Yep.
Business practices, ladies and gentlemen.
That's kind of bullshit, to be honest. initially I didn't realize that if you bought the season pass, you didn't get the upgrade. To be at first, so at first I was thinking like, that's a bit crappy. That if you've bought the game, you're not getting the free upgrade. But I wouldn't have been expecting it. Mm-hmm. But if you've bought the season pass, basically you've got the Ultimate Edition anyway, just not in name.
Yep.
That sucks. Like,
let's be real. This decision, though, hasn't been made by Remedy themselves. This will be 505 Games, the publisher, who will make that decision. So no hate needs to be directed towards Remedy. Remedy have been a fantastic company, have done some incredible things with their games. But it's crappy business practices by the likes of 505, by the publishers that just want that extra bit of cash.
Yeah. Again, I just
either
think
way we can make a bit more money.
Yeah, it just conditions you though to think, just wait. So if I didn't buy the game and support it day one, if I didn't buy the season pass, I could have waited just under a year, bought the deluxe edition for £20 less, and then I get more for less. Like, what kind of way is that to support your audience, support your crowd, essentially? It just makes me think, like, when they bring out the next game, why would I buy it day one when I could just wait and get the better, superior version for £20 less? Yeah. It's just I understand why these things happen. I just think it's just not great. But I will buy it on Stadia if it comes out on Stadia, because it's a phenomenal game. And like I said to Remedy, no disrespect them, they've made a great game.
I hope it comes out on Stadia, because there's one I've missed. And if it comes out on Stadia, that's probably when I'll be more motivated to buy it.
Exactly. But that brings us to an end of all the world and all the joys of Stadia.
All the world.
All the world. That brings an end to the world.
I don't get an upgrade and control the world's going around.
Stop this podcast. Ring your loved ones. Tell them how you really feel. That date that you've wanted to ask out for many, many months, go do it. Because this podcast and the world is apparently about to end. But no, that brings us to an end of episode 47 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, the longest running UK Stadia podcast in the world. Brought to you by myself, Chris, my lovely co-host Tom and Richie. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you are kept in the loop with all of our episodes that go up, but more importantly, all of our live streams, content, unboxings, Tom's review of Kishi and using Android devices, Richie's beard, and much, much more every week over on the Sounds of Stadia channel. Also, don't forget our lovely patrons out there. Thanks for stopping by. Patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia, where you can sub to our channel for as little as $1 or 79 pence, and that gets you exclusive content and, more importantly, the post show after this, where we're about to head off and we're going to talk about all the games we would like to see coming to Stadia in a bit more in-depth discussion. So thank you for tuning in. My name's been Chris. You can find me at CyberChris2077 over on Twitter.
I've been Tom. You can find me at AdaxisLP over on Twitter.
I've been Richie, and I'm at RichieC89, and I'm a little annoyed at Chris for changing up the outro.
Me too, mate. Me too.
And I also don't care, at Sounds of Stadia on Twitter. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great week in gaming. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.